From JBS Studios in Greater New York, this is the JBS News Update with Teisha Bader.
I'm Teisha Bader with the JBS News Update for Friday, September the 27th, 2019. Negotiating teams for Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's Likud party and Benny Gantz's Blue and White met this morning for unity talks with no real progress reported. Netanyahu was tasked with forming a government earlier this week by Israel's President Reuven Rivlin, but since neither party has enough seats for the required 61, Netanyahu called for a broad unity government, and the parties are meeting to see if they can reach such an agreement. Bearing in mind that the Prime Minister's pre-indictment hearing is coming up next week, Rivlin had proposed a plan that would allow for Netanyahu to take a leave of absence if and when he is indicted in the fraud and breach of trust cases against him. In that scenario, Gantz would then serve as interim prime minister. After the 4-hour meeting this morning, Likud representatives said most of the meeting dealt with the president's plan, but Blue and White's representatives did not say at the end whether they accepted it. Blue and White claimed in their statement to the press today that Likud was mostly worried about keeping Netanyahu prime minister, as opposed to Blue and White's concerns, which they said focused on principles and values. The two sides will meet again Sunday morning on the eve of Rosh Hashanah, the Jewish New Year. And Netanyahu had announced last week that he would not attend the United Nations General Assembly this week because of the post-election negotiations. Netanyahu was scheduled to address the world body yesterday. In his stead, Israel's Minister of Foreign Affairs, Israel Katz, took the podium, where he asked the UN to implement a decision regarding barring any country from giving aid to Gaza until terror group Hamas returns the remains of two IDF soldiers, Oron Shaul and Hadar Golden, as well as release two Israeli citizens who crossed into Gaza who are said to suffer from mental health issues, Avira Mengistu and Hisham Asayed. Katz also called on the international community to stop the Iranian nuclear threat and shared his hopes for peace.
We signed peace agreements with Egypt and Jordan and are working today to advance our relations with many Arab states in the region. We call on the Palestinian Authority to stop incitement, to stop encouraging and financing terrorism, and to recognize the right of the Jewish people to its own state. We call on the Palestinians to come back to direct negotiations without any preconditions.
Over 7,000 Palestinians gathered along the Gaza security fence this afternoon, with several hundred taking part in violent riots, burning tires, throwing rocks, and explosive devices at Israeli troops. The IDF said that an IDF vehicle was lightly damaged when it was hit by an explosive device, but no injuries were reported. Israeli troops responded to the riots with tear gas and reportedly live fire when necessary. Several rioters were said to have been injured. The U.S. Senate Foreign Relations Committee approved a resolution to commemorate the 25th anniversary of the terrorist bombing of the AMIA Jewish Community Center in Buenos Aires, Argentina, which left 85 people dead. New Jersey Democrat Bob Menendez, who sits on the committee, said yesterday today's passage shows our continued commitment to finding justice for victims of terrorist attacks across the world. He said, I look forward to working with my colleagues as we continue to support the government of Argentina in their investigation into the event. Our world, he said, has no place for anti-Semitic acts, not then, not now, and not ever. Children's book author, illustrator, and artist Mordechai Gerstein has died. Gerstein won the 2006 National Jewish Book Award for The White Ram, A Story of Abraham and Isaac, and the Caldecott Medal in 2004 for The Man Who Walked Between the Towers, among other works, which are also loved for their exquisite illustrations. He was 83. An emotional reunion for two cousins who were separated as children when the Nazis invaded Romania. People magazine reports 87-year-old Morris Sana and his cousin and friend, 85-year-old Simon Meyerowitz, were sure that the other had been murdered in the concentration camps. But after finding each other on Facebook, the two reunited in Israel this past weekend after 75 years.
We got each other now,
Yes,
and we can see each
good
other.
to see you.
Well, the Jewish New Year is just days away, and congregants from Pittsburgh's Tree of Life Synagogue visited the Calvary Episcopal Church earlier this week to prepare to hold their high holiday services at the neighboring house of worship. Tree of Life members have been attending Sabbath services at Rodef Shalom, another synagogue in the area, but with larger attendance for the high holidays, they were in need of a larger space. And just days after the tragic mass shooting last October, where 11 Tree of Life congregants were murdered, Reverend Jonathan Jensen offered his church and whatever else was needed for the synagogue. He told congregants who arrived at an open house on Monday, one of 3 open houses being held for the congregations of Tree of Life, to become acquainted with the space. You are our neighbors in many ways. God calls us to love our neighbors as ourselves. And with Rosh Hashanah beginning this Sunday evening, a programming note and reminder that JBS once again this year will air live high holiday services from Central Synagogue in New York City on Sunday from 6 to 8 p.m., Monday 9 a.m. to 11:15 a.m., 11:45 a.m. to 2 p.m., and 3:15 to 5 p.m., all times Eastern. Taking a look now at our programming for tonight on JBS for Friday, September the 27th. Kabbalat Shabbat services are coming up at 5:20 from the Hampton Synagogue, followed by live services at 6 from Central Synagogue. Then it's a concert from the Yamin Ord Youth Choir. At 8, former UK Chief Rabbi Lord Jonathan Sachs and historian Simon Shama speak at the 92nd Street Y. At 9, it's the film premiere of Brothers, about the clash of 2 brothers in Israel, one religious, the other secular. And coming up right after this newscast, a look at this week's Torah portion. And that's the JBS News Update. I'm Teisha Bader. I will be back with the update on Tuesday. Shabbat Shalom, Shana Tova Umetuka, a happy, sweet, and healthy New Year.